Hello everyone, how's it going? Dr. Incompetent here, and let's do a review of Subnautica Below Zero, shall we? So now that I've completed the game, I feel comfortable sharing my thoughts about it, and what we're going to do in this review is I'm going to give my personal review along my standard lines of criteria, and then in the second portion of the review, I'm going to make a recommendation on whether or not you should buy and play the game, and I'm doing this review here in 2024. So the first thing we need to know about Subnautica is, what kind of a game is it? And per the Steam description, it says dive into a freezing underwater adventure on an alien planet. Below Zero is set 2 years after the original Subnautica. Return to planet 4546b to uncover the truth behind a deadly cover-up. Survive by building habitats, crafting tools, and diving deeper into the world of Subnautica. And the user-defined tags are open world, survival craft, survival, and underwater. And all of those are right. The easiest way to talk about Subnautica Below Zero to say is it's a sequel to Subnautica, and then everything about Subnautica pretty much applies. However, they have iterated in this sequel on the original formula by streamlining some of the progression, the controls, the vehicles, and you spend a good deal more time in this game on the surface than you did in the original Subnautica, and you actually have to fight the elements, which you didn't really have to do in the first game. So it's hard to really talk about Subnautica Below Zero outside of Subnautica because it is such a direct sequel, and you're going to hear me compare them a lot, not necessarily to just say which one is better, but because it's almost impossible to talk about it in a vacuum. So this is the sequel to one of the best survival experiences out there, and in my opinion, it is a very nice sequel to the original game. The first thing I want to say about Subnautica Below Zero, it should be important, and we'll get to this later, is I think it's not as good as the original, but it's still very good. And the reason the, too long didn't read explanation for that, at least for me, is because the original Subnautica provides moments of sheer terror and wonder that just can't be replicated the second time you do it, even though there are new life forms, new biomes, new things to see, new secrets to be revealed, new gameplay, devices, new technologies, new characters, all this stuff. It's still just muted by the fact that it's not your first rodeo, as it were. So when I go into a review, the first thing I always talk about is the game fun? Like, okay, well, what kind of a game is this, and does it make doing the things that the game is asking you to do fun? And 100% yes, this game is very fun, and in a lot of ways it's more friendly than the original Subnautica. It's friendlier in the sense that there's not as many deaths to big scary things as there are in the first game, and it's not as much a survival horror experience as the first game either. But really the friendliness comes from the fact that they appear to have taken a lot of feedback when they made this game and listened to people with the first Subnautica and just smoothed out the experience so dramatically by easing some of the initial time it took to kind of get going and stabilized, making your life easier as a player, and just kind of taking and sharpening that Subnautica experience in such a manner as it respects the player just a bit more than the original game. And so because of that, everything is just done so well. The execution of the controls, the crafting, the survival is so nice in this game that it's very, very fun to play. And you get to do things that are different from the original Subnautica, if you're coming from that make it not just exactly the same game, which I like. So let's move from the fun into the controls. How does Subnautica Below Zero control? And I've already kind of talked about this a bit, but it's worth emphasizing that one of the strongest points of the game are just how well done and well executed the controls are. It's easy to drive around in your sea truck. It's easy to, fly around on your Snow Fox. It's easy to walk around, to swim, to gather materials, to do crafting. Everything is very precise and intuitive, and I never encountered any problems with the controls. The platforming, of course, is never the best in this, but you don't really have to do it hardly at all. And the underwater exploration is all done superbly, and there's less getting stuck than there was in the original Subnautica with your Cyclops, just because the sea truck is modular, so you can kind of like take it apart if you have to, and it's just generally easier to maneuver than the first game. Now, a subset of controls that I like to talk about are the systems and the UI. So how do the systems in the game work, and how does the UI help you navigate those systems? Again, they took the systems from the original game. Survive by balancing your biometrics, getting sustenance, hydration, managing your temperature, oxygen, all of these things. And by exploring, you uncover new recipes that you can craft to make life easier, to help you get around further, to help you survive in a way that allows you to focus on learning the story and exploring. And all of the systems just work great. The light combat, which is usually just electrocuting anything that comes close to you, scanning, crafting, swimming, building, all of the things that the game asks you to do are done in a way that I think is fantastic. I never had a problem with any of the systems in this game, and I think throughout you can just see that they took what was working from the original game and then they just improved upon it for the most part by refining and fine-tuning those systems. As far as the UI goes, it's basically exactly the same as the original game, and it's great. It's navigated through your your PDA for the most part is how you get to your crafting window, your inventory, your logs, your blueprints, and that's all done superbly. And then the on-screen UI is very colorful and intuitive, so I think it is fantastic. There never was a point in the game for me when any of the systems or the UI got in my way and prevented me from playing or enjoying the game. So then we move into the story of Subnautica Below Zero, and interestingly, it's a much more developed story than the original game. It is not about surviving, getting off the planet, and trying to establish a cure. So the story is different in that way, and for what it's worth, I probably like the story in the first game better, but the story in this game is cool because you actually get a protagonist with a clear identity and an objective. It's not just, okay, survive, and you don't really know who you are or what your role on the ship was, and you have no relationships at all to anyone. It's a very detached experience in the first game. In Subnautica Below Zero, you have a clear identity as Robin, and you have an objective, which is trying to find out, the circumstances and that led to your sister's death, and just investigating everything about what Altero is doing here. But what's really nice about this one is you just get more characters that you learn about through voice logs. You even get characters that you get to talk to, which is completely different than the first game, and I like that a good bit. So I like the fact that you have a character with a personality, a character with, an agenda, and a story that's not just find the cure, because that would be too derivative of the first game. I like that they mixed it up in that element. Now, I'm not going to spoil the story for you or tell you anything else about what you find out, but what's great about this game, too, is that if you love the original Subnautica, they expand on the lore fundamentally as you revisit the planet in a different area, and you get more information about the aliens, the bacteria, the life forms on the planet, and just kind of what's going on, and I like that a good bit. So then, after the story, I always enjoy talking about the graphics or the visuals. How does this game look? It looks fantastic. It actually looks better than the original Subnautica. They clearly had more money, more time, more technology as time had passed, and they took the visuals from the first game and again just made them slightly better in most regards. The lighting, the effects are just fantastic. The art direction is amazing. So it keeps the essence of the original Subnautica. It does not feel like it's, a new team with a new identity and a new vision. It's very much like, okay, we're taking Subnautica and then just putting more into it, and all of the new stuff is in the wheelhouse of Subnautica universe, so it fits in perfectly. It's a seamless integration in my mind, and I think the game looks amazing. Now, what about the audio of the game? What about the music, the sound, the voice acting? All of this is top shelf. Again, just like with the first game, but now they even have better voice acting, in my opinion. I think the music is great. Some of the new music is just sensational. I really enjoy it. And the sound effects are top shelf. So these two things are fantastic. Now, if you take all of these things that I've talked about and bring them together, what about the style of this game? Does it feel like it is no longer a unique, interesting game and it's just a derivative, follow the formula sequel? Does it feel like it has no soul and it is a kind of a disappointment to the artistic majesty that was the first Subnautica? And for me, I think that it is a game filled with style and heart, and it's very, very much by the original, or in keeping with the original vision of the first Subnautica. As soon as I started playing, I kind of exhaled and I was just like, I am playing another Subnautica game. This is awesome. I love this. I'm so happy to be back playing the game, and yet it's different and unique. And it has a style all its own that is framed in large part by, the main character, but also the different environment that you find yourself in and the new breakthroughs that you discover about some of, the aliens that first encountered the planet and the bacteria and all of this business. So I think the game has a great sense of style. And if you take all of that together, how would I grade Subnautica below 0? What would I give it? What letter grade would I score this? So always with a grade, I ground my personal review in the Steam reviews and the Metacritic review to kind of provide a baseline. So on Steam, it's got about 81,000 very positive reviews, and on Metacritic, the game on PC has an 82 average from 30 critics and a 7.1 from users. And for me, I'm slightly above this. I give Subnautica below 0 a B+. I think it's a fantastic game. I really enjoyed it. It was just a super fun time to continue your Subnautica journey and fill in a lot of gaps with the story. It does really, I'm not going to spoil the ending, but suggest that there's more to come. It's not like we're closing this up. Subnautica 3 is on the horizon, maybe 2025. And so there is anticipation for that baked into it, but I think it's a really great experience to continue your Subnautica and just get more Subnautica with a twist. It's not, for my money, as definitive an experience as the first Subnautica, where I'm just like, oh my goodness, I can't believe this. Like I said, because it's not the first time that you're getting exposure to the scope of the Leviathans and the depth of the waters and the alien life and everything, it doesn't have the same impact for me as the first game, but I still think it's just so well done in execution that I give it a B+ and think it's a really fun game. So now what I want to do is offer a recommendation on whether or not you should play Subnautica below 0. And this is going to be kind of like, I don't want to say a cop-out, but it's pretty simplistic. First of all, I don't think you can play this without playing the original. You can, of course. There's nothing preventing you from doing so. But I think you need to play the first Subnautica and then come into this one. And the recommendation is pretty simple. Did you like the first one? You might like this one then. Now, there are two ways you can go, though. Some people were turned off from Subnautica because it was too scary, and I think that if you were put off by the scariness of Subnautica, then below 0 is actually a better place to enter because it's not as scary. Some other players, though, don't like that about below 0. They feel like it was, kind of like made too easy or lacked the bite of the original Subnautica with, the harrowing elements. And I don't mind at all that they kind of changed it to that degree. You still feel some terror and there are leviathans. It's just not quite like it was in the first game, and it wasn't a huge detractor for me. Like I said, honestly, the only thing that detracted was just the fact that I'd been here before, and it wasn't entirely fresh and new. But I still think if you like the original game, you should certainly give this a shot. And if you like survival games, I think the entire Subnautica franchise is worth giving a shot. But I would start with Subnautica. It's, as far as difficulty, this game is less difficult than the first. So I think that maybe then too, if you found this to be the first game to be too challenging, then this could be there. But honestly, the first game, you can save it. It's not like it's hard. It's more of just, you know, the only real challenges I ever found in Subnautica was getting lost and not having clear direction about where to go sometimes, and having to explore to figure out where to go next. But there's so many resources out there that isn't really a stumbling block. As far as value, this game is shorter than the original Subnautica, at least for me on my playthrough, but that was almost because I just knew what to do. Like, I just knew how to play Subnautica, and they really, really did a good job of making the ending of the game less onerous than the first game. I think that's very nice. They made it less grindy, which I actually appreciated. So I think it's a good value. I think it's $30 when it's not on sale, and it goes on sale pretty frequently. And as far as replayability, there are collectibles, there are different choices that you can make. I don't think it's very high, like maybe in a year or so I would want to replay it, but it wasn't as much I wanted to replay it as much as the original Subnautica, but you could still play it again to try to get everything and, you know, get all the achievements and everything. So I recommend this highly if you liked Subnautica. And you know, that might seem too niche, but honestly, so many people have played Subnautica. That's a pretty broad recommendation, and I do think you should start with the original Subnautica if you haven't played it first, and then come to this afterward, so that the story and the gameplay makes sense. Alright everybody, so that is my review and my recommendation for Subnautica Below Zero. Let me know in the comments below where you're at with this game. What grade would you give it? Do you think it was a worthy sequel to the first game? And do you think my review was fair, too generous, or too harsh? Let me know, and I'd love to talk with you about Subnautica Below Zero in the comments below. I will read everybody's comments and you know, kind of see where we're at. And also, I will be posting in the description links to my full playthrough of Subnautica Below Zero, my beginner's guide to Subnautica Below Zero, as well as my playthrough and guide to Subnautica, in case you want to see more gameplay or you want to get into the games and need to know how to do that. Those resources will be there for you. Everyone, thank you so much for watching. Take care.